I just want to be able to help out community-wise when it's nonprofit, whatever it is. I feel like that has really fulfilled me as a whole. Like I've realized everything I wanted to. I'm still doing exhibitions. I still will be doing exhibitions, entering things and stuff like that. Not to win any money, but in order to just, spread like community and stuff like that. I want to be like you one day. I want to be able to be stress-free.
I love the fact that you think my life is stress-free. Good evening and welcome to Art After Dark, where you get to learn all about arts and culture in West Texas, and I get to live out my Dick Cavett fantasy. Good evening, my name is Randy Ham. I am the Executive Director for Odessa Arts, and tonight we have a very special treat, a dear friend of mine and an incredibly talented artist, Mariana Astete. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for bringing me here. It's always a fun time with you, Randy.
It really is. You and I have talked about this several times. We've even been able to document it because you were on an Amazon documentary called The Story of Art in America that was filmed right here in Odessa. And the entire episode focused on artists from Odessa. And you got to be one of those artists. What was that like for you?
Well, first of all, thank you to everything that Odessa Arts has been, such a huge family for me. And what was the question again?
Yeah. Well, we worked together on a documentary and for Amazon Studios called The Story of Art in America. And season 3 was all set in Texas. And the entire episode was about artists in Odessa. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And you got to be one of those artists chosen by the director. So what was that like for you to be a part of that documentary process and have your art basically broadcast to the entire world?
Right. So it was a huge blessing in disguise. And I couldn't believe it because there's amazing artists. And most of them were already they're with me, Black Tulip. And we have a lot of different artists, and I really appreciate it, but it was almost like, what do I talk about? Because everything that I do is so spontaneous. It was such a huge opportunity, and also to be able to expand me as a student, because I was a student at the time. I was at the University of Texas Permian Basin, and to be able to share a little bit about printmaking and the art and discoveries here while being in Odessa, Texas. So that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you mentioned printmaking because I know that was kind of the focus of your segment. But I love printmaking as well, and you do it so well. And you had a pretty good teacher that really influenced you. Who was that?
That professor was Mario Kiran, and oh my goodness, I didn't know anything about printmaking. And when I dived into that world, it was very interesting because that's how newspapers were made. Those are first kind of prints that were made, and nobody really understands that. You see these limestones in a documentary, you see these things, and you're like, I can't imagine that limestone with that kind of rock, with that etching and all those things. He influenced me to be able to push myself further. More than just art, like, why are you making art? Why are you creating these things? And to be able to research and not just make art just to make art. Why were people making art back then? Why are we making art now? What's the purpose?
And why do you choose one medium over another? Because nobody says I want to be a printmaker when I grow up, right? But then you discover the intricacies of how to do it. One of the things watching you film your segment was actually seeing those printing presses in operation and seeing them because they're very, very old, and it's not something when you're talking about maybe the vanguard of what art is going to, you don't go back and look at some of these things that establish the foundation of what artists are doing today. And you handled those machines so effortlessly. It was really cool to watch.
Thank you so much. It was very difficult as well. You don't really think about, like, okay, you have to move this thing and have to think about so many things, and you have to water the stone because if not, you lose your image. But yes, I totally agree, and it was very fun to learn from him as well.
Yes. You had another teacher over at UTPB. We are really talking a lot about the UTPB art department. It's another little hidden gem right here in West Texas, and there's some phenomenal artists coming out of that program. So we talked about Mario, great guy. He has a partner in crime that
Oh my
influenced you
goodness.
as well.
Yes, Christopher Stanley.
Yeah. So, if Mario taught you about printmaking, what did you learn from Chris?
I learned from him. First of all, I was an insanely stubborn student. I was like, I want to do more than beyond. I want to do this. And at one point, I was making cups. He's a ceramicist, sculpture professor. He also is in the ECISD board member. He wears so many hats. I don't think there's a closet big enough for
There's
him.
absolutely not. And every time I look at Chris, I think, God, I am so lazy.
I
Right?
know.
He makes us look so lazy because of so many things that he does, and also the amount of passion that he has from the minute he walks out the door
Oh
every
no,
morning,
that's
and
the first time.
really pushes not just individuals, but he pushes to make our community better.
Exactly. And I was making art when I started. Okay, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to give this to my mother. I'm going to give this to my cousin, my dog, whatever. And he, one time when I was doing some pottery, he was like, I didn't want to sell my work. I was like,
Yeah.
how can I not know? And he was just like, where are you going to keep it in your house? What is it going to do sitting there? And Mario as well, he was like, you don't want people to have your work somewhere else. And that's whenever Empty Bowls, I was volunteering for that.
Yeah.
I started seeing a different side in art. I started being more in the community. I started giving away my prints in my show.
Yes.
And I was just like, at the end of the day, we're not going to take this anywhere. And for
No.
me, I learned from Christopher, like, like we have to work with the people. Like, as students, how are you showing the university name? How are you showing your name? How are you showing the name of everything that you stand for? So
Mm.
that for me, like, touched me. And I met you because through him and
Yes.
Mario, I met all these amazing people. I worked for the Women Art Against Assault, all
Yes.
these things. And I realized, okay, I can actually make a difference and not have to be about myself.
Right. Well, it's nice to learn the art of giving, uh, and then the people that have your work. Like, I have a lot of pieces of your work, which just makes me so happy. But the fact that when I see something that you've created, I think about you, and I think about the work that went into that, and then also because we've had such a great relationship for so many years, I know your story, and I relive it in my head every time I look at something, and then to know that you have left the university you graduated and you're on to graduate school, and that it makes me very proud.
Thank you so much. That means everything. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Well, you just have a beautiful aesthetic about your work, but also you imbue your your soul and the souls of your family into everything that you do, and I've been so fortunate to also meet your family,
Yeah.
and I have fallen in love with them as well, and it's so great to see everybody out in the community and that you bring your family along for the journey. So without inducing tears, talk a little bit about that and how much your family has played a part in your artistic journey.
Yes, so there's many things that I talked about, but a lot of things also, like I was in such a rebel stage, in a way that I was like, I'm gonna live on my own. I'm gonna do whatever I like, whatever this and that. I'm not gonna go to school. I left high school. I didn't finish high school. It was such a journey that when I came back and realized how much family meant to me, even
Hmm.
family that wasn't family,
Yes.
for me, it was to a point where I was just like, my mom, she left her home country. She was a
Hmm.
midwife, she was an RN, she was making big, big money. But she had a word from God and she was like, no, I'm going to go to the United States. I'm going to be able to, um, you know, do whatever I can to, start over. And did that religiously. Like, I am a Christian at heart, but also, like, how am I showing my happiest self to people? How am I not just religiously, but just like ethically speaking? How can I just be a difference? Because in such like a bad stage in my life, I decided, nope, let's make something different. And then I started going to school, all of this stuff, and I fell into art. And then I met people like you and people that turn to family, and,
Hmm.
and people that turn into people that are cheering for you when you have zero family here. I have no family here. So for me, it's
Right.
been insane to even meet people like you, Mario, Stanley, fatherly figures, figures that at the end of the day, I have no father. So for me, it's been such a different way of seeing things differently artistically, and how a community is so important.
Right. Your chosen family is as important as your biological family, and you know that's so important to have those people cheering you on, because I can tell you, Chris and Mario and all the rest of us, we cheer for you because you're not just so talented, and whether talent is a gift, whether it's a skill that you hone because maybe you aren't born with it, it's that's only one piece of the puzzle, and being able to take that initiative and finish your education and go off to graduate school or put your work out there in the public where people can see it and understand it and appreciate it. That takes a special kind of courage that not everybody has. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of closet artists out there that are just too afraid to show their work, or they don't feel like they're good enough. And sometimes you need a Chris Stanley or a Mario Kiran
Yeah.
to push you out of that comfort zone.
Yes, yes. And something like important that you mentioned, it's even students in art, even people that are like, you're going to be a starving artist, all these things, like, why not try?
Yeah,
Like, it's in being a student right now, like, push yourself so much further than you even think, because you don't want to regret, oh, I should have done that in school. Oh, I
right.
should have, oh, I didn't volunteer enough. Or I didn't, because volunteering just feeds your soul so
Yeah,
much more than making the art itself.
it does. And, you know, by doing art, that doesn't mean you have to be an artist. Uh, there are so many things. I'm just going to put you on the spot. There's probably things that you've learned from your art class that you've put into use in everyday life that have nothing to do with art. But, can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to use your arts education in other ways besides just making art?
Yes, and communication. Like, it's so important. By making art, by being so respectful in what you do, then you realize, oh, I can take this into whatever situation. Even when I'm ordering food at a restaurant and stuff like that, I know now I see, like, Mr. Barrientos, how when he
Yes.
makes art and stuff, I'm like, this is art too.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, how am I putting my best foot forward in order to appreciate the small different things, the small different tasks during the day and things like that. Like, now I'm teaching classes now in graphic design, and I'm like, okay, like, you take those bits and pieces, and like everything that my professors have taught me as well have helped me thoroughly understand students. Okay, like, why are my teachers putting so much time into myself, and now it's like I have to do that? How can I do it?
Yeah, but you do, and you succeed, and so you're in graduate school now. Where are you attending?
I'm in University of South Dakota in Vermilion, South Dakota.
Uh, that's got to be pretty cold up there.
It is definitely not Texas, but also I've learned too, if when you have a passion, you put up with anything and everything, and it's. I mean, Mount Rushmore is there, not too far away, so I'm okay. Finding the great things in the small things. I'm doing graphic design and augmented reality, immersive design.
So that's something fairly new, and that's new to your portfolio too. So you are learning a new discipline. What's that been like?
First of all, it's been something super different, but I thought I was like, okay, I've learned welding, everything Chris Stanley has teaching that is not even in the world. I think he just makes stuff up, and it's like, oh, hey, this is a new medium,
I think he does too.
printmaking, all this. But I was like, I lack so much in graphic design. I lack so much in this, and I sent my application, and I was like, hopefully they accept me. And they were like, why? You have no experience. But I was like, exactly. I can prove to you that I can learn. I can push myself, and if I don't, I don't. But what do I lose? And now that's growing so much. You see all
Yeah.
these VR sets. That's where we're learning how to create video games. You see all these posters coming to life. You see all these things. And it's just been a learning curve, but also you understand a different side that you didn't appreciate in art.
So have you created some work in augmented reality that you're really proud of?
Yes,
Okay, tell
yes.
me about
It's
it.
a whole campaign. So it was logo design, but not just creating a logo. Why is the logo looking like this? There's bits and pieces that you find out, not just stamping just a last name and a first name. And then you have app design, so prototyping app design, making an app from scratch for an event. And then poster designs, and those posters they have, it's called 4, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4 because of Fashion Week. So you have
Oh,
these, it was an event created by me in order to like bring everything together for people that can't afford going to Fashion Week, so
yeah.
you can have all these things. So then it's research, and then you have to make all the mock-ups. How will the buses look with all this
Yeah.
stuff in there? How will the airports look? So it's a whole kind of event. And then now gaming design, how to create a game for people that struggle with, I don't know, blindness, how to, all
Mm-hmm.
these things that have a purpose. Now I'm actually realizing more marketing side of things,
Yeah.
and how can we make it affordable for people that can't buy or can't make their own logos and things like that.
That's really exciting. I can't wait to see some of those pieces, and to see that from where you started when we first met and the pieces that you were creating, that you're doing this. It's a natural evolution, but it's not something I would have said. Oh yeah, she's going to go be creating logos for a Fashion Week campaign. So that's pretty cool. I just want to tell you there is a book called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and it's about two game designers,
Oh
and
wow.
it's a male and a female, and they create this augmented reality company, and it's their story, and it's one of the most beautiful, heartbreaking books I've ever read in my life, and you need to read it like right now.
Am I gonna cry?
You will absolutely cry.
Okay.
But I've never read a book like that before, and especially no spoilers, but the the two main characters have a very deep friendship, but just because they're male and female doesn't mean that they have to get romantically involved, because there are beautiful platonic relationships out there between men and women, and I cannot talk about this book enough.
Oh my gosh.
But that's not why we're here tonight. So back to you. But yeah, put that on your reading list. So once you finish graduate school, what are the goals you want to achieve? Where do you see yourself like in 5 years from now? Where do you think art is going to take you? What's your next step?
That's a great question, Randy. I just want to be able to help out community wise when it's nonprofit, whatever it is. I feel like that has really fulfilled me as a whole. Like, I've realized everything I wanted to. I'm still doing exhibitions. I still will be doing exhibitions, entering things and stuff like that. Not to win any money, but in order to just, spread like community and stuff like that. I want to be like you one day. I want to be able to be stress free.
I love the fact that you think my life is stress free. Uh, but that's very humbling. Thank you very much. The world is your oyster, and you've got a great attitude about why not. You know, so maybe you fall on your face. You know what? Get yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. Not everything's going to be a home run, and nor should it. Uh, it's so cliche, but failure teaches us a lot.
Yeah.
It really does. So, um, are you going to stay in South Dakota? Do you want to come back home to Texas?
I do. I do want to come back to Texas, and I do want to be able to give what they've given me, what Mario, Stanley, what Dr. Adams, what history professors. Like, I want to be able to give what they gave me, whether it's teaching, whether it's helping in the community. I just feel like art is not talked about enough in as a college degree, as a university degree, as a master's.
Yeah,
And it's so humbling to be able to even talk about printmaking because I didn't know what it was, and I wish I would have known sooner. Some
right.
people are like, "Yeah, you can do that in Procreate in an app. You can make
Sure.
that." Why? But it's the feel, the look, the things coming back from the old times, bringing them today. So I just want to be able to make people, students in particular, really happy, and kids to be able to learn pots and prints.
Oh,
That's
Pots and
insane.
Prince is
If you don't know what that is
awesome.
about,
Yeah,
I mean, I know you know, but like I'm just saying, it's
yeah,
such a bringing things like that, pottery and printmaking to high schools, to
yeah.
elementaries.
Well, and you get so much more investment in a piece if you're actually physically doing the work. Mentally designing it and physically putting it together than if it's on a screen. And and don't get me wrong. I mean, there is a place for Procreate, and there's a place for digital art. Everybody has a seat at the table. More art is better than less art. But if you start to learn these processes, and you wouldn't have digital art if you didn't have the printing press first.
Exactly, exactly. I use Procreate every day.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great app. One of my favorite artists is of course a comic book artist, and he just in his last project switched to digital art. It's the first time he'd ever done it, and it's beautiful. I'm gonna have to show you some of the pieces. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But for 30 years he'd been doing it all, on Bristol board, and it was amazing. And you can't. I mean, yeah, you can tell it's digital art, but it takes the same kind of effort, and
Yeah,
it takes the same kind of concentration that it does if you're doing, pencil to paper.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So that's a good question. Do you have an artist that you admire specifically, or someone that you has influenced you?
Yes, so in South Dakota, the reason why I went to South Dakota, Mario Kiran also went to
Mm-hmm.
South Dakota. That's his alma mater. There's this professor called Younghae Kim, and
Yes.
she does everything all throughout. There's just not digital. She's worked for Samsung. She's worked for many, many different companies, and I do admire that the fact of being able to mentor me and say you can't just place designs where you think it's pretty. You have to think about what people are looking at, what's getting into their emotions, what's actually like moving them. And she's created things for, like hallways and buses and things, and where there's no lights in Korea, and putting like different things in places. And it's just been insane to see how somebody else looks at art compared
Yeah.
to fine art and now design. But yes, I think like throughout time, and Stefan Sagmeister is somebody that, if you don't know who he is, he's making a lot of typography in different ways and
I
feelings and things like
love
that.
typography.
Yeah, so Stefan Sagmeister has been somebody also influenced by Younghae Kim, like through that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I am a font nerd. I will look at fonts all day long.
Gil Sans.
Ah, yes, Gil Sans. Yeah. It's great to kind of pull that stuff into, contemporary art. And the fact that there are people working now in contemporary art that are using typography and things like that, that when you say those words, they sound like antiquated or like their time has passed. And it's not true at all. And it's being used every day, whether you know it or not. Especially when you look at advertising art. I mean, that is everywhere. And you talk about art that influences, it has a purpose. It is there to make you buy something, go somewhere, see somebody. So it's incredibly, incredibly powerful.
No, 100%, 100%. I think it's like the today, the past, the future, and now you're like, oh, this is why this little thing was here. This is why I'm hungry whenever I see red.
Right?
You
Yeah.
don't realize that. I
Mm-mm.
didn't know that. Now I'm like, oh, it's a whole different world that I'm living in.
Yeah. When I was at Odessa College, one of my English professors had us look. We had to take two different print ads and write an essay on why, what they were trying to accomplish. And I don't have a good visual. Like I would never be a good visual artist, and that's okay. I'm not upset by that because I can write pretty well. And so writing a paper on the art that I looked at was a lot of fun. And it was, well, they're using red because of this, and they're using, the negative space over here is supposed to draw your eye for this, and all of that stuff. And examining that stuff was amazing. It was so much fun.
Like Milton Glaser, the guy that
Yes.
created the I Love NY logo. I wrote about him and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is insane. Like it's so like, why is it color red? Why is it that
Yeah.
font? And now it's everywhere.
So funny you mentioned Milton Glaser because he was just back in the news a couple weeks ago, because he designed the iconic logo for DC Comics back in the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. And they had jettisoned that logo like, oh, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And they've been going through logos like Kleenex. And then when James Gunn became the head of DC Studios, they just unveiled their new logo. It's the Milton Glaser logo. They brought it back after like 40 years. And I was so excited, and it pinged my nostalgia. Like, I was just so happy. And it was a piece of advertising art, and it made me just so
Wow.
happy. And that's, I didn't know that it was Milton Glaser that did that. So that's pretty
That's
cool.
crazy. Look at that. Us
Yeah,
connecting.
right? It's so awesome. How are we on time? We got 5? Okay. All right. Yeah, so we got Milton Glaser. So is there a project or something that you haven't attempted yet that you want to? What's on your bucket list artistic wise?
Bucket list. I want to be able to play. I want to be able to play with shadows and creating words and things and feelings. With typography itself, I think that's the most challenging typography. You either go one way or the other, and it just influences the emotions that you're feeling. With
Yeah.
whatever the weight of the text is, whatever the thinness, the spacing, to be able to play with shadows and effects, I think that would be insane. Also, I have my thesis show to be able to think about
Oh,
that,
yes, you do.
2026. So that's something to be able to look forward to.
That's very exciting. We may have to import it once you get it done and bring it home
Yep.
so that everybody can see it here. And plus, I'm in my head, I can already see a typography influenced show, and I'm just so excited about that. Um, but you are a product of this community, and it's so wonderful to hear you say that you want to come back and give to the community, because we have all invested a lot in you, not just because of your talent, but because you are genuinely such a good person, and it makes us so happy to see you succeed. So I cannot wait to have you back here. I cannot wait to see the next thing that you do. You have been just such a joy to get to know, and always when I spend time with you, I leave happy. So
Thank you so much.
yes, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Join us next time on Art After Dark, and cheers.
Cheers.